Hey everybody, what's up? This is Retro Character Reviews. Had a bit of technical difficulties, but sorry, I wanted to do a figure form version of this retro review in time for Alien Romulus, but something wasn't just reading right or whatever, I don't know, but what was originally going to be a figure form of my old self, well, the current self you guys see here, the V figure, to go back to norm when it comes to a certain older figure I've had. Sorry for the red, I just came back from work, just pounding stuff like usual. Anyway, I hope that doesn't mean anything. This guy right here. This guy right here is a nice little, I want to say Hida cloner marine figure, and, yeah, I feel like it is the proper figure to put here to talk about Aliens, the movie, that basically became one of my favorite action movies of the late 80s, and basically made me have that sequel idea of like, hey, here's the first movie that's a horror movie, and here's the one where you get to finally kick the thing's ass kind of thing. But before we talk about that, we have to talk about the man himself, and no, not my stupid, I guess, penciling I tried to do with those with my mustache. James Cameron. Long story short, there was the old, I guess, Hollywood rumors over the years that he had the idea of Aliens by just basically putting the S at the end of the title of the blackboard with the investors and just said, do that. And there was a bunch of other production stuff I could talk about over the years, but I believe Oliver Hooper and any other video voice essay channel that you guys have probably seen over the years have probably done the movie justice better than me. I would like to put a little wrinkle to that. I have not seen the 4K cut that Mr. Hooper has probably mentioned in his updated review of the movie. My best guess, it's probably got the same technical hiccups. Again, go to his video. I am not really tech savvy when it comes to the restorations and stuff like that. Be lucky to see this video in 4K, by the way. Sorry in advance for those who watch that kind of quality. So yeah, onto the plot itself. It's basically, like I said, it's the first movie, but an action movie. And however, unlike most of what the franchise will also try to be, also trying to mirror that kind of horror and balance with the action, it does become horror first. It builds the tension as time goes on. Also, for the purposes of this review, I only had time to sit through the theatrical cut. I know there was a director's edition later in life, when it was out on DVD, that explored a lot of stuff, like some plot holes, one of which, I believe ended up becoming a what-if comic later in life also, for Paul Reiser, then later to be Mad About You fame, and obviously, here on this channel, Stranger Things fame, most of his TV work, essentially. But in his case, he was just basically a company man from Weyland-Yutani. For those who don't know, also just the franchise as a whole, yeah, Weyland-Yutani is one of the evil corporations that kind of wants to, like, hybridize and just do weird experiments or whatever with, pretty much anything around the xenomorph race. Go to, I want to say, Nerdist's timeline breakdown of just, like, the plethora of novels and history of how legitimately corrupt that company has gone over hundreds of years throughout space and time, essentially there. For the Woman of the Hour, speaking of this movie, Sigourney Weaver, this is her second time with this franchise. Probably her best time, because there will be sequels later in life that she will definitely regret. I think Resurrection being one of them. I won't get into that old dirty laundry about that. I will say, since we are talking about Cameron here, and making an official retro review, I'm not going to do scores. I never do retro reviews, mainly because I don't want to piss the old directors off, and especially in Cameron's case, it's going to be right up there. Main reason is that he had a whole philosophy of crunch and stuff like that. Mainly because of the effects at the time. More people have talked about how his kind of weird, extreme, making it hyper-realistic kind of culture with, like, the practical effects at the time did kind of bite him in the ass sometimes. Abyss being the biggest example of it. Again, I think either I think Joe Schmo or like some channel also talked about how insane the production of that was. I might have also mentioned that and lead up to Avatar 2, The Way of Water, a couple of years back, so again, probably retreading stuff here as well. There isn't really much to retread about the production of Aliens. It sounds like everyone in that cast has basically became either friends or good working partners with Cameron later in life. Obviously, Michael Biehn, due to being Kyle Reese in the first Terminator 3 years prior. Again, I'll talk more about that in the retro review for that movie in the lead up to Terminator 0 later this year. Sorry, this month. And me speed running out of the way, my overall thoughts of just the Marines themselves, now that we're talking about Michael Biehn, they are really freaking cocky. You can definitely tell that this was like those late 80s, like, Vietnam metaphors of, like, oh, they're so cocky, they're so gonna get it, and then when they get there and it's all goes, tits up, it's like, oh, we are so underprepared kind of stuff. And it was actually it was a non-metaphor. It was annoying for conservatives that are watching this movie at the time. Again, there were more historians of this movie and other stuff like that who will probably be more ingrained with those details other than myself. I'll try to keep it brief and just say it's kind of one of those times the franchise kind of puts you on the back foot for what you already know about the monster before the monster does something new, last minute kind of stuff. Like in this particular case, the Alien Queen. I think for the majority of this franchise going on forward, Stan Winston will be in charge of mostly the effects until I want to say either Resurrection or the first Alien vs. Predator. So again, that's probably going to be the details I'm going to be missing. So sorry in advance for that. Also, Stan Winston didn't really stop after the 80s and 90s. He kept overseeing stuff practical effects wise until like I want to say the first Iron Man movie in 2008 before he passed. So he did leave a legacy of helping that much effects teams. And for what I've heard with Romulus is that Fede Alvarez actually wants to keep it as physically practical as they can. Again, I won't know till the full movie itself, but in this movie's case, that's kind of the hope and fear I hope Romulus doesn't abandon most of the horror just to like speed run to like an aliens kind of like burst shot like a bunch of like proto pulse rifles kind of stuff. I don't think that's going to be the case, but however, speaking of that rifle of question, there was a very good reason why I wanted to have that blaster as my first ever like Nerf mod, because for myself and the Nerf hobby community, we were dumb. We all wanted to do like integration mods and stuff we watched as a kid in the 80s and 90s. That pulse rifle being one of them. Like I can remember so many half length, not conversions, but the body of that blaster, I think in the actual movie itself was a Thompson modified submachine gun, and I think a then era grenade launcher, I think a Spaz 12 shotgun kind of stuff. A lot of kid bashing with like real steel components, essentially when it comes to sci-fi blasters and guns and like that era. Just imagine like kit bashing like models and stuff like that, but with like actual firearms and blanks. So kind of weird, kind of dangerous if you don't do it right. Long story short there, safety wise. Again, I could talk your ear off about the effects and stuff like that and not really the plot itself, because it's kind of straightforward. Really wants basically closure for her time in the Nemestromo going into LV-426 in this particular case. The kid that played Newt later in life ended up just being a school teacher. She didn't really want to do child acting for too long, and good on her if anything else. I know there was always rumor mill for years of trying to have a direct sequel from this, from Neil Blomkamp to like I think a Amazon book series to even I think stuff in the comics nowadays. And that's kind of been the big, I guess, chasing the high kind of mentality I think the franchise became later on. This was, without question, their best sequel. I would not be kidding myself if I told you that this was legitimately their best sequel. And it definitely shows. Sorry for the word salad and ramble of stuff, but that's kind of how it is. I know there was games like, obviously, Colonial Marines that try to, like, undo some plot holes, like why did Hicks die in 3 and why can't we just like swap the body and stuff like that. The franchise was doing weird stuff even in like other mediums and stuff, essentially, like I said earlier with the Berg What If He Lived series, which is, it sounds like a decent hook of like how he would have been in real time going into 3 kind of territory, but that's kind of where I want to leave it at. Is overall, if you love the movie when you're a kid, or this is your first time watching the franchise, sorry for the random word salad, but trust me, it is worth reading up the movie. It's worth reading up how they did it, especially how Cameron was just after Terminator going into this movie. You could definitely see like his style as a director kind of building as time went on, and having Stan Winston and a lot of then VFX artists of practical effects being at the forefront of what this movie could be. And as like I said, the plot is pretty simple. There were some Easter eggs which were very rare in that time to try to like tie it to like other stuff that was new at the time. I think this franchise tried to tie into more or less, if you could believe it, Blade Runner. Again, go to the Nerdist video that tried to explain it better than me. And that's really it. So until my Alien Romulus review, hopefully later this weekend, go to what could have been a decent figure form review here if my camera didn't biff it last minute on the end cards, to my previous video, which was also talking about this week's episodes of Campaign 3 of Bell's Hells on Critical Role. Big Love shirt here to sub to the channel, hit the notification bell down below for next week's short for episode 104. Go to my other hand here to my previous I believe, videos also as well. I guess, oh, sorry, shorts, since I'm talking about shorts coming up. And until next time, I'm Retro Review saying, yeah, I feel like this whole Retro Review would have tied the room together if I just got that Nerf Pulse Rifle. Like, why is it still over $300? Why, Hasbro? Why?